there's the remote. Hey everyone, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. My name is Adelina, and I make videos about living in my tiny house on wheels and living a more intentional life. Haven't said that in a while, so figured it was time. Happy Mother's Day to all of you guys out there who are mothers. Mother's Day makes me think about my mom. And so today I wanted to share some memories, stories about my mom, and sort of as a little homage to my mom. So hopefully you will indulge me while I do that. So my parents are immigrants. In fact, I was 4 years old when I came to Canada from Portugal. And my parents were very traditional in that my dad was the provider, and he worked a lot. He worked at the mine in the small town that I grew up in. And he did a lot of shift work, and he would take every overtime shift he could get. My dad was an excellent provider and a very caring man, but he was also a strict disciplinarian, as again, more traditionally European households were. And my mom did the majority of the soft parenting, well, most of the parenting. And so when I think of my mom, I think of that. I think of her as a loving, caring, patient person with a silly sense of humor, and someone that made me feel safe and loved and taught me so many things that today are a big part of who I am. When my mom passed at 85, it was devastating because we were very, very close. And in her final years, my mom had dementia, and she did not remember me. So for the last few years of her life, she did not remember me. She remembered my brother, because my brother lived with her back in Toronto, and he's a nurse. So he cared for her at home. She passed away at home, which was what we wanted, what he always hoped would happen. And she always remembered him. She never forgot the name of her cats, but she didn't remember me after that, for the last few years of her life, which was obviously very sad. I'm the youngest of 3 kids, the annoying youngest sibling. Just ask my brother and sister. They would tell you that. And so when my brother and my sister were off doing their things, I was home with my mom. And I remember when my sister went to school, when we came to Canada, I was 4. And after we settled in, my sister got registered for school, and off she went to school. And I don't know if my brother was in like a preschool or a kindergarten. I don't remember that, but I do remember my sister went to school. And we lived in a very small mining town in the Northwest Territories. And so my sister would walk to school. One day, my mom cannot find me. Well, it turns out that because I worship my older sister, I had followed her to school. She didn't see me, but eventually one of the teachers at school saw me, found me, and somebody brought me home because my dad was working. And my mom didn't speak English at the time. So all I know is that she couldn't find me. I'd followed my sister to school, and it wasn't a short ways. That was the beginning of her having to keep a very close eye on me, because I always wanted to be where my sister was. I think really if she'd have thought about it, she probably would have figured it out. And certainly after that, she knew if she couldn't find me, I was probably somewhere trailing after my older sister. My mom taught me so many things. My mom taught me how to sew. In fact, my mom used to sew a lot of our clothes. And she used to crochet as well. But she sewed a lot. She had a Kenmore sewing machine. And she had some fabric tucked away. I don't know how old I was. Probably about 9 or 10. And she had this beige fabric in a cupboard. And I decided I was going to make a skirt. So I grabbed this fabric that she had been saving for something. And I laid it out on the floor. And I cut what I thought was a skirt shape out of it. And then I didn't know what to do with it. And my mom found me, and she was so mad at me. And I remember my dad saying, no, 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 this is a good thing. She wants to learn how to sew, teach her how to sew. So from that point forward, my mom taught me how to sew. In fact, the sewing machine I still have, which is a Kenmore from Sears, is the sewing machine that she bought me when I was about 17. She bought me that sewing machine, and I still have it and still use it. But she taught me how to sew. And I remember sewing a jacket. It didn't have lapels, but it did have sleeves. I sewed clothes for my Barbie doll because my mom had been doing that sort of stuff for me, sewing clothes for my dolls and such. She taught me how to do that. It was just one of those things that we shared, and still something that, a skill that I use. And every time I sew, I mean, I have sewn a lot. I sewed a lot of clothes for the kids when they were babies and young. I've quilted. I alter my own clothes. I've sewn a lot of things. I made my wedding dress. And every single time I pull that sewing machine out, I think of my mom and that time. And she was so patient with that. And I think she was very proud of me for wanting to learn that skill and being able to sort of share it with me, because my sister didn't want to learn and my brother had no interest at all. So my mom also baked bread. In my mind, I'm picturing her baking bread every single weekend, but I don't think that was the case. She probably baked a couple of times a month, maybe every couple of weeks or something like that. But I spent so much time in the kitchen with her as she baked bread and sweet bread, Portuguese sweet bread, biscoito, and all sorts of pastries and things like that. So she's the one who taught me how to make bread. She's the one who gave me a love for being in the kitchen, cooking. She would make these huge pots of rice pudding. And when I got old enough, she'd have me standing on a chair with an apron on. It would be under my armpits, tied in the back. And she had this huge wooden spoon, and I would be stirring the pot of the rice pudding. I would be holding, because she kneaded the bread by hand, and she would make large batches. And so she had this, I guess it was a plastic wash tub, but it had handles, and she would knead the bread, sort of bent over, knead the bread in this tub. But she would also have me sitting sort of across and holding it down as well while she kneaded the bread, and then she would let me help her shape the bread and all of that. And every single time that I smell fresh baked bread, every single time, when I walk into a bakery, when I smell fresh baked bread, I think of my mom. Because when the bread would come out of the oven and it would be cooling, she would make coffee. She had, her sister would send her beans from Portugal that she would roast in a great big cast iron frying pan. And then we had this hand grinder, the kind that had a little drawer underneath. It was wooden on the bottom. And when I was old enough, I would be grinding it. She would grind the beans and then make coffee in the percolator. That coffee was so strong. And to this day, the reason I take my coffee sweet and with cream or milk in it is because of that. Because we would sit and we would have coffee. And of course, mine would be half milk and with lots of sugar in it to dilute it. And she would slice one of the loaves open, and we would sit and we would have butter on it and strawberry jam, and we would talk while we drank our coffee and ate our bread. And it's the best memory ever. Like, I can still smell our kitchen, and I don't even know what we talked about. She probably just listened to me yammer on about all sorts of that stuff, but it was that moment of us spending the time together and eating what we had just baked, and just sharing that moment. I have a picture of me and Mom, and I've got a kerchief on my head to keep my hair back, and I'm wearing an apron, and so is my mom. And we were baking bread, and I guess my dad took a picture of us. I think it's a black and white one too. And it was, and I can't find it. I was going to share it, but I just can't find that one. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you will have heard me say that the kitchen is my happy place. And that is because of my mom. You know, learning how to cook from her, learning how to make stew, learning how to make bread, learning how to make rice pudding. It just, I learned so much from her, but it wasn't just what I was learning. It was the fact that she had the patience to spend the time with me. I'm sure she could have gotten things done so much faster if I hadn't been there. But she was patient, and she knew that the skills she was teaching me were skills that I would use for the rest of my life. I also inherited my love of animals, cats in particular, from my mom. We always had at least 3. One was always a long hair, and she babied those cats. Obviously, my mom was not vegan, and so in the fridge at all times, there was a container, a Rubbermaid container or a Tupperware container with chopped up sardines. She'd buy big bags of frozen sardines, and she would chop them, thaw them, chop them up. And in another bag, there would be chopped up stewing meat. And the cats would they had some dry food as well, but they would always get seafood and a little bit of the meat with their meals as well. Oh my God, they were spoiled. Like I said, to the day she died, she never forgot the name of her cats. She also really loved birds. She loved those budgies. She loved those birds. She would talk to them. They would talk back. Like she had just this way with animals, and they loved her. I guess I get that from my mom too. My dad got MS in his mid-40s, multiple sclerosis. And by the time he was in his mid-50s, he was in a wheelchair. And so we moved from a small town in Pine Point, Northwest Territories, to Toronto because we had family there, and they had specialists there, good doctors. And so we moved. And my dad went into the hospital a few years after that. He was at home for a while, but it was really hard to have him at home because he was in a hospital bed. Because he was in a wheelchair. And, my mom really struggled getting him in and out of bed. I would help when I could, but he wouldn't let us help getting him in and out of the tub, like to bathe and stuff. Anyways, it was really tough. But when my dad went into the hospital, then my mom got a job at the same hospital as a cleaner. And so that she could go and see my dad before and during her shifts, like on her breaks and such, which really took a lot off of her plate, because before that she was going back and forth a lot to see him. But this way he would also be able to see him while she was on her shift. Well, she had to take the streetcar to get down to the hospital. And she had to go through a part of town that wasn't great. It wasn't awful, but it was, it's Toronto. So, it was a little sketchy at times. And she told this story about, she was on the streetcar going to work, and this guy gets on, and he's wearing kind of like a trench coat, and he sits down across from her, and he's not wearing any pants. So he's like exposes them to her. And my mom, the way she told that story, oh my God, it was so funny. She was like, of course she said it in Portuguese. She was like, he's just sitting there with his shortcomings, just visible to everyone. And oh my God, it was so funny. It was so funny. Like, just to think of my mom saying that. Anyways, she apparently told him off, and never saw him again. After I graduated, and I worked for a year, and then I decided I was going to move. I was going to move to Alberta, just to get away from home. Not to get away from home, to get out on my own. And my sister lived in Edmonton, so I decided I was going to go to Alberta. So I saved up a bunch of money. I bought my plane ticket, and I made the arrangements and everything. And my mom didn't say a whole lot. She didn't discourage me. She was encouraging, but she really didn't say a whole lot. And then it was the day that I was leaving, and my brother was going to take me to the airport. My mom was going to stay home. And she's sitting on my bed as I'm finishing packing. And she looks at me, she goes, "You spend your whole life raising your children, and then they leave you." That was it. I'm still tearing up just thinking about it. That was it. I was like, yep, okay, I'm not going. I will not be going. I'll be staying home for the rest of my life. Like, what do you say to that? My brother's like, "No, you're going. Absolutely, you are going." And he just basically grabbed me by the shoulders and just directed me out. As a mother, I now understand what she was feeling. I was her baby, and we were still like this. And me leaving, I realize now how devastating that was. And then for weeks afterwards, my brother would come home from work and he'd find her in my room holding my teddy bear until he finally forbade her to go into my room for a while. My mom was always a little forgetful, and kind of goofy sometimes, right? She'd laugh about the silliest things, and she'd forget something and we'd laugh about it and stuff. But then as she got into her late 70s, I really kind of started to notice. Obviously, she would repeat herself quite a bit. And, like she would walk into a room, say something, walk out, walk back in, say the exact same thing. And so we knew that this was going to happen, that she was starting to have dementia. The doctor said it was Alzheimer's, but I don't think it was. I think it was, she was just getting old and she was getting some dementia, but her personality never changed. A lot of Alzheimer's patients, their personalities really change, and they can get mean. And that was not my mom. She just got funnier and sillier and more forgetful. I remember one time she went off to church without her skirt. She was wearing a full-length slip, thankfully, and she had her top on, but off she went without her skirt. Thankfully, she noticed it when she got to the corner store and then turned around and came back. But that was the first big sign. So I would go and visit, and I would send money, but my brother had the primary care. But we came back, we were all there for her final days. And I was the last one. My sister went to have a shower. My brother went to the store. And I'd said to my brother, "Go to the store." Ironically, my brother was terrified that he would be there when she passed, even though he's a nurse. But he really didn't want to be there at that moment. It was just, he just didn't think he could handle it. So we didn't know what was going to happen. But he went to the store, my sister went to have a shower, and I was sitting with my mom when she took her final breath. I think she waited until it was just us, so I could be there. Anyways, I'm forever grateful that I was there for that moment. And I have, ever since then, felt that she is my guardian angel. I feel her around all the time. I was not going to get weepy. Because today when I pulled out the albums to look at the pictures, because I like to do that on Mother's Day, I was smiling and laughing. And when I think of my mom, I think of just happiness. I think of just kindness and love. And my goal has always been, as a mother, my goal has always been to be half of the mom my mom was to my kids, so that someday when I'm gone, they're telling funny stories about the silly things that I've done and the memories that they have. Obviously, they're different memories than the ones that I have with my mom. Anyways, for those of you who still have your moms, I hope that you're able to hug them and tell them that you love them. For those of you who have lost your moms, I hope you have wonderful memories that make you smile and laugh as well. And for those of you who are moms, oh my God, what an important job that we do as moms, because we are giving our children memories that will last them a lifetime. We're giving our children skills that they will use for the rest of their lives. And we're teaching them how to be parents, mothers and fathers to their children. We make more of a difference than I think we realize. And I guess I'm realizing that too as I think about it, because I don't think about, I think about how my kids will remember me, and I think about, the example that I'm setting. But I guess it's only when I think about the incredible impact that my mother had on me and our relationship, and just the things she taught me and how she loved me, then that really brings home to me how much of a difference, how much of an impact I guess I'm making on my kids. And so on Mother's Day, I wanted to share some of the things, some of the memories that I have, and then also to just pass along my love and admiration for all of you moms out there. Anyways, happy Mother's Day. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.